Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Communicating Your Business, Creating a Pitch Deck That Gets Results. My name is Michelle Eisenberg, and I am a program assistant at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit that is building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. So as you will see in the chat in a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So definitely make sure to check out those links and resources in the chat. And then just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, let us know where you're dialing in from in the chat. And then second, we are going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event. So please make sure to submit your questions for us in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will try our best to get to all of them. Texas, Chicago, Tennessee, Florida, California, Arizona, New York, Georgia. Wow, all across the country. Super exciting. St. Louis, Maryland, Oklahoma. Welcome, everyone. Awesome. And of course, none of what we do could be possible at the center without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, the Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, Microsoft Entrepreneurship for Positive Impact, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We are humbled by their contributions and hope you are grateful too. And so before we get started, we like to launch a couple polls to step back and see how everyone is doing today. And we'll use this information to guide the development of future programming. So this first one is going to ask, how are you feeling? Fearful, anxious, surviving, or optimistic? I'll give everyone a few moments to submit a response here. Thank you for participating. I'm gonna end this poll and share the results. Looks like optimism is in the lead. That's always great to see, but we do have some other feelings of fear, anxiety, and surviving. So we will try to address those feelings in our conversation today. I'm going to stop sharing this one and launch the second poll. What is keeping you up at night? This will tell us a little bit about your current entrepreneurial needs. Thank you. Awesome. Give it a few more moments. All right. I'm going to end this poll and share these results. Okay. Looks like finance is in the lead. Sales coming up behind. Marketing and scale neck and neck after that, but really all across the board. So we will take this into account. Now I'm going to stop sharing this poll, and without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest, Ira Gostin, Chief Strategist and founder of G8 Strategies. Ira, thank you so much. We're super excited to have you here, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hi, Michelle. I'm thrilled to be here. We'll get started. We'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. So, hold on to them since I can't kind of see everybody. And I will jump into screen share and okay. So I'm dialing in from a now snowing Reno, Nevada. The spring just can't get here fast enough. So we're going to talk today about what to use to communicate your business, the pitch deck, but really about storytelling and how to talk about your business. So it's a subject that I love to talk about, and always exciting for me. Stories are a part of our fabric and our culture, and business storytelling is no different. You'll see brand storytelling really differentiating the stories from, that great uncle used to sit on his lap. So we're talking about brand storytelling and business storytelling. And there's a connection that happens when you're telling a story, and especially in business. So we'll dive into that. I'll quick give you a little background about me. I own an agency called G8 Strategies. My wife and I are partners, and we work with both private and public companies in the mining industrial spaces. So very narrow sector. But I am a public relations strategist, and we're a full service marketing agency. I've been a storyteller my whole life. Apparently, I think that picture of me at the top there is before I could actually type, but and I was also a photojournalist in my first career for the Associated Press. And I think it's ingrained in me, and I've learned over the years how to turn that storytelling love into the business side. I'm a lifelong learner. Besides having an MBA, that APR after my name is my accreditation in public relations, something I'm really proud of. And I've done executive or continuing education at NYU, Columbia, Colorado School of Mines, and recently finished the Innovation and Design Thinking program at Stanford. So a lot of the learning from there I'll be sharing with you. So that's just a little bit about me, and we'll just kind of dive in here. So we're going to talk today about what is a pitch, and what does it all mean? What are some keys for success? And then, I don't know about you, but I like to listen to webinars and watch webinars. And sometimes I'll be really inspired by one and go, wow, this is great. And the next day, I don't know how to put that into practice. Like, how do I take that from that webinar and make it work in my business? So I'm actually going to go through an actual pitch deck that I created. It'll be kind of fun. And so you'll get to kind of see that in real practice. And then I've got some handouts. So have your smartphone or tablet close by so you can scan the QR code. And then we'll have time for questions. So we're just going to jump into this. Storytelling is definitely a human thing. That we're the only species that has storytelling. And we'll talk a little bit here about why that's important and where the brain comes into it. So we're going to have a little bit of neuro education, which is an important part of the whole art and science of storytelling. So the first thing we got to talk about is, what is a pitch? And I apologize, my nose is running a little bit, having some hay fever. It's springtime in my body and not outside. But I think the easiest way to talk about what a pitch is to first talk about what it's not. And it's not sales. There's so many times where somebody, you've heard the phrase elevator pitch. And so we're not trying to sell anything. If we get a business card, we trade cards, great. Really, a pitch is something much more simple than all of that. It's just an introduction. It's a tease. It's just a little taste about your business, and that's it. And what we want from a pitch, whether it's an elevator pitch or a pitch deck or just a stand up and give a pitch, is we want the recipient to just simply say, "This is really interesting. Tell me more." then you make that meeting appointment to have that conversation, or to do a bigger presentation and conversation about the investment. But that's really all we want, is we just want that quick little reaction. So we're going to get inside the brain a little bit here, and the brain, I come from a journalism background. We didn't take classes that had ended in ology and science. Those, we avoided those like the plague. But I've gone back and tried to understand how stories impact the brain. So the brain has this interesting way of having a fear of missing out. And so when you tell a story, the brain will automatically latch onto that in fear of missing something. And so that's one thing to consider, that when you tell a good story, you will hold the attention of the recipient or the viewer because of that. A pitch should be, whenever possible, visual. Our brain processes information with visual components 60 times faster than without visual. So when you see that pitch deck that's full of bullets, and there's 22 bullets on a slide and 6-point type, your brain is already shutting off. It doesn't want to process it. It doesn't want to take that information because it's too complex. However, not to be outdone by the lords of PowerPoint, I will have a couple slides with some bullets, but they'll be simple. So visual is always better when telling a story, whether it's handouts or some other kind of technique. Neuro-coupling happens when you, and think about when you watch a movie, right? You've got all these concepts I'm kind of talking about in a pitch deck are all parts of a movie. So neural coupling is when the brain takes this information in and identifies it as something that it finds interesting and attaches to it. And so, when you see a movie and that night you have a dream, you're Superman or you're Spider-Man because you just watched that movie earlier in the day. That's neural coupling. It's taking you and putting you into the story. When we take that person and put them into our story, now they have an attachment. That's a good thing. The more we can attach and connect and engage, that means the more effectiveness of our pitch. When neural coupling happens, there's dopamine release. Dopamine, much like adrenaline, creates excitement and energy and the thrill factor. And when there's a dopamine release, that means that your pitch is now connecting on multiple more levels. And last but not least, in this instance, a story connects psychologically, neurologically, 22 times greater than facts and figures alone. And that's really certainly, it's a super important piece of how to create a pitch, because when you see something that's full of bullets and numbers, there's too many obstacles to get past. So this is a really important factor to keep in mind. I've got like I said, a couple slides here with some bullets. I'm not going to go through them all. You can certainly read them, but there are certain things that a story has to have, and you're presenting a challenge, you're presenting a solution. One of I'll tell you, number 4, when I mentor people, I'll look at different accelerators that I work with, where I'll watch a pitch deck. I'll have my timer going to see how long it takes them to get to the so what. What are you trying to do? I've stopped people after 3 minutes. If you can't get to what you're trying to do in 3 minutes, and actually it needs to be in the first 20, 25 seconds, you've lost your audience. So it has to, you have to get to these points quickly. And while you're still telling a story, you can't drone on and drag it on. We want opportunity, whether it's to participate, to invest, however that is. You know, have your contact info at the end. I've seen a lot of pitches where you get to the end slide and it doesn't have their email address. So, you know, think about all of the things that you need. But at the core of it, a pitch needs to have, just like a story, a beginning, middle, and an end. And then the big thing is it has to have a so what factor. Why should I care about this? So if you think of a movie has a good movie has a beginning, middle, and an end. There's a hero in it. The hero is somebody for us to care about. That's the so what factor. If you're a fan of Shark Tank, you know, Barbara, she's not the loudest one. She's not the most vivacious one, but she certainly is always in the middle of the conversation with her questions, and the way she processes information. When, you know, I love listening to her feedback and how she engages with entrepreneurs. So here's the weird section of our program. I don't know if you're a Star Trek fan or not, but we're gonna use our teleporter to move back in time to about 1900. So don't get caught up on the fact that we're using PowerPoint to talk about something in a period that PowerPoint didn't exist. But this is my sample deck. And it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but you'll get the idea of how it all works when we get started. So here we are, we're moving back in time. This is what it looks like out your window in New York City in 1900 when there's no power. My name's Ira Gostin. I'm with the Thomas Edison and Company. And I'm here to talk to you about our new product, the incandescent light bulb. With the new Edison incandescent light bulb, you have daylight on demand. There's no more dangerous burning substances in your home. There's the ability to have light whenever you need it. This is the future. Not only is this a convenience factor, but it's a safety factor. Kerosene lamps are dangerous. Candles are dangerous. Fireplaces are hard to work by. You don't want your children using these. Electricity is coming to every home in every city in the United States, and this will be the future. And we're proud to be at the center of it. The market opportunity, as of 1890, there were 62 million people in the United States. That provides for a lot of homes that need electricity. And when there's electricity, they need electric light bulbs. So we're starting out looking at strictly 6.5 million residences in our service obtainable market. And that's around the New York City area. I'd like you to introduce you to the team, the Edison team. If you're not familiar with Thomas Edison, there's kind of a list of some of his inventions. There are things that you may have in your home now, or that you're thinking about putting in your home, but the incandescent light bulb is going to be the most popular and be in every home in America before you know it. We already have patents on the incandescent light bulb. Here's an example of one of them. And these are simply, you can install them in your own home. You will have electricity when it comes into your home. It will branch out to light sockets, and the bulb simply screws into a light socket. Here's our competitive landscape. Now, there are other products coming onto the market. You can see we've kind of rated us against other things that we currently use. I don't know about you, but I get tired of trying to write letters with a kerosene lamp and having to deal with that smell. But the Marconi bulb is coming. They are about a year behind us. And this, you can see, we're just going to be head and shoulders above all of the other products that are out there. To date, we've already done our tests. We've got our prototypes completed. Everything is totally validated. We're in the PR state where we're talking to the Wall Street Journal about a feature article. And we're also talking to a couple of the big city procurement managers from municipal purchase levels. The demand is already there. Through our first year, we anticipate the revenues as shown. And we believe that we will begin fulfilling orders at month 6 of production, and our sales force will be hitting these East Coast areas and putting us at least 9 months ahead of any competition, or at least between 9 months and a year. Here's where we see our financials for startup costs. This is actually one of our test houses that we have created just an amazing, safe, lit area. And we're offering investors an opportunity to invest in this technology. We're looking for pre-IPO investors. Here's what we see as the anticipated return for investors. We already have 4 investors committed, and we're looking for another 4. These are aggressive payback options, but all of our finance team has gone through these numbers, and we see these as very realistic based on the demand and anticipated sales numbers. Why invest in the Edison company, and specifically the incandescent light bulb? New York City will be 100% electrified by 1910. That's just 10 years away. We have a pipeline of 37 patents to ensure constant growth for the company as well as investment growth. We anticipate by 1925, every home in America will have electrification and light bulbs will be needed. This isn't a case where each home will only have one light bulb. homes will have multiple light bulbs inside and out. So we welcome you to be a part of our investment opportunity, investing in the future of America. Thank you. I'm with the Thomas Alva Edison Company. You can contact me via telephone at New York Cypress 653, and I'm happy to come to you with more information. Okay, we're back to 2023. We'll talk about that some more in the chat, but that's a pitch deck. Really concise and specific and full of information without being overwhelming. So I want to have lots of time. I have the list of pre-submitted questions, so I've gone through this a little bit on the quick side because I want to have a lot of time to chat. So we're going to move through. Here's the QR code. I'll leave that up for a minute. I've got just a couple worksheets that you can download when you scan the QR code. You'll be signing up for our email. We put out a email just once a month with other entrepreneurial events and things, articles and things that are helpful. I'll leave that up for just another second, and my contact information is coming up. So if for some reason you didn't get that, you can certainly email me. And Michelle, are you going to jump back on? I'm happy to start answering questions and have some conversations.
Awesome. That was so amazing. I personally was transported back and honestly learned a lot about the historical context of the business. So convinced me, love it. So many great insights. And we have some questions rolling in. So let's jump into it. Again, to our audience, if you have any questions, please submit them to the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. All right. So, couple questions coming in about the pitch sample that you gave. So there was kind of a lot of text that was on the sample pitch. So this person is asking, if you were really presenting a pitch, would you want to have that much text? And I do think it's important to note that you kind of touched on interesting specific details and didn't necessarily vocalize every single thing that was written on the screen, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you kind of make that determination.
Cool. So it depends on the topic. Yeah, I sound like an economist now. Well, maybe. No, so I don't love all the text. You know, when I put this together, I really wanted to put an example together, and I thought long and hard about how to do that. And when I came up with the idea of something from the past, it seemed to make more sense so that we didn't get caught up on the product itself. And at the same time, I didn't want to invent something out of nothing that didn't make any sense. So sometimes a deck is going to have slides, but if you notice, I did not read the slides. They were up on the screen, and I took one key point to talk about. And that's the trick to being effective. Because when I do a pitch for a client, if I present, I always hand out the deck. In fact, I believe I'm going to send the center a PDF of this, and you can get that. They'll send it out to everybody that attended. And of course, if you don't get it for some reason, email me and I'm happy to send it to you. But the trick is, do not read. Your voice is reinforcing the things on the slide. The brain has the ability to process both pieces of information. So I think that answered that.
Yeah, no. I think that was super helpful. And then just before I jump into the next question, are you able to just go back one slide to the QR code?
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. And so kind of a follow-up on like the structure that you followed. Can you kind of like just walk us through like the elements that you included in terms of like the list of like how you kind of went through the story and like what each slide or each part of the pitch kind of like represented, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Why don't I'll just go through it real quick. We're kind of informal here, right? So
Sure. Yeah, that works. And the visual, I think, will be helpful.
so there's a couple things that you have to have.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so you always have a cover slide. Don't spend a lot of time on it, but sometimes if people are coming into a room, you want this up on the screen. I tried to make something, because of how strange this whole concept is. Again, we're doing a PowerPoint that didn't exist in the time that we're talking about a product, and I just have fun with that. And being a Star Trek fan, I thought this was pretty cool. So cover slide, really super simple. No information on it other than what the name of the company is and a visual. Here's the challenge slide, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tired of working in the dark. Now we know what the challenge is. It's that simple. I'm also introducing the solution, but because if this was real, you wouldn't really know what an Edison incandescent electric bulb was. So I'm introducing it, but I don't explain what it is.
Sure.
Now, here is the solution. And I'm giving what the solution is and a little bit of competitive advantage all in the same slide.
Mm-hmm.
This could be 2 slides if your product or service is a little more on the confusing side. Mm-hmm. So this can break up into a couple slides. Market opportunity. This is kind of what's being used currently. If you look at a lot of entrepreneur decks, everybody and their brother does one of these. I will tell you, though, I am not a fan of just using TAM, SAM, SOM, and there's also LAM, local area market, so you can break it down even further. So if you do use this concept, you could do a pie chart, something visual helps, though, and explain what the acronyms are. Don't just use them. Yes, do most investors know what they are? But if you have somebody in the audience that's maybe not a seasoned investor that's looking to jump in and they're not familiar with this terminology, you will lose them in a second. So explain it and then break it down and then explain why you're choosing the specific audience to start with.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Introduce your team. Doesn't have to be resumes. It doesn't have to be complicated. It should be just totally simple. This was really hard. You should have seen me Googling old inventor black and white photos.
No, yeah, they look like they go together well. So you do great.
That is actually Thomas Edison up in the upper left-hand corner. The rest of these guys, I don't know who they are.
Okay.
Then you want to start getting into some validation areas. So if you've got intellectual property, you want to talk about that. It's important for investors to know where you are in the life cycle of an idea. It's proven, it's tested, it's validated. Those are all areas. They could be multiple slides. You want to have the patent and legal. This was cool to find this visual.
Yeah.
And again, I am using a lot of text here, but I try to, as much as possible, use the Steve Jobs way of doing a slide deck. And I don't do it all the time because it's hard. One image, one thought. And it's hard in a pitch because there's a lot of information you need to get out. But if you use that as your guiding principle or guiding light, I might say, it helps you balance things.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a great framework.
This again, you're going to see this in a million pitch decks. But it's a way to talk about the competition, to let an investor know that you've researched it and you've looked at ways of taking your product and stacking it against others. You should have a timeline or accomplishments. What have you done so far? So again, and if you're not a fan of Shark Tank and you're getting ready to pitch, please go watch it. Set it on your DVR. Watch 12 episodes back to back. You're going to see a lot of bad habits, but what you're going to see a lot of is, we like your idea, we think you're onto something, but you're not far enough down the path yet. The guys that are successful that get deals already have $50,000 in sales or $100,000 in sales, or they've sold 12,000 units in 3 weeks on the internet.
Right.
They've got this validation momentum going on. These numbers are totally made up. I just came up with some things, but I've sat through pitches that, and I tried to make them in actual $1,900, which was way more complicated than I thought. And definitely a little bit more copy at the bottom than I would normally put on there, but I wanted it to be clear and understanding. So you want to have some ideas presented. I've sat through pitches that don't talk about the finance, and you have to let them know, because as I'm going to show you in a couple slides, an investor cares about one thing: how do I make money off of this guy? That's it. That's at the core of it. Nobody is going to invest in you because you're really great or you're good looking or you have a cool car. They want to know how they're going to make money. And so you have to address the money thing up front. So startup revenue revenue projections, startup expenses. And this is where mentoring comes in. I guarantee you that the center has I started to say Rolodex, but people don't know what that is anymore. An address book full of people that would be more than happy to help you do projections and analysis of your finances if you're not a finance person. So don't think just because that's not your skill set, you should ignore it. You have to have this, and you have to have some basic things. I was judging a business plan competition, and they had a line item for labor, and it was loading crates onto trucks was what the labor unit was. And they had it at $10 an hour. Well, that's not realistic. First of all, nobody puts pants on anymore for $10 an hour. And second of all, you're talking manual labor in, I think it was Las Vegas. And that number's not realistic. So you have to use realistic numbers. Otherwise, an investor is going to get stuck on that ridiculous $10 an hour. And right away, all of your validation goes out the window because you're not accurate. So be accurate on that. If you know that you have widgets and they need to get into a box by manual, you call a staffing agency and say, okay, how much does it cost to have a bunch of people come put my widget into a cardboard box and tape it shut? And they'll tell you, okay, you can usually do 40 pieces an hour, and these people earn $18 an hour, and we're going to charge you $7 an hour on top of that. And now it's $25 an hour. And so now you have a realistic number. Do your research.
Yeah.
Here's the ask, right? This is the next bullet item on your list. Little bit of validation in there, right? Here's our test house. So we're showing that the product actually does what it says we said it's going to do. And here's the ask. We're looking for $1 million investment from 4 people. And then you may not have this all the time. Your pitch might be you're pitching a manufacturing facility to take you on as a client. So you're not going to have this. But if you're looking for investors, you have to have some way of them understanding how they're getting their money back.
Mm-hmm.
And then your last slide has to be a wrap up, and it has to be strong. This is too many bullets, but I put it up there just because there's a lot of information in there. And if you notice, I kind of left it on the screen, maybe a little longer than some of the other ones.
Yeah.
3 to 5 is the number. You want to use odd number bullets because for some reason the brain processes odd numbers more effectively than it does even numbers. Not sure why, but that's the test, and I'm not going to argue with a bunch of people that got tested.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and this is the wrap up. And then, you know what? I always say thank you because, you know, they're taking time for you to present your business. So say thanks and make sure they know how to get a hold of you. And I guess I could have put an email address on there, but then that would have been even more weird. But that's an actual phone number from 1900. I found it on a sign.
Oh, yeah, Anna and I were commenting on that. It's amazing.
Cypress 653. I don't know where it goes to now if you call the operator, but that was a number. So
awesome. That was super helpful. We'll
go back to that for a second, and then
thank you.
So who's got another question?
Yeah, so we have a few audience members asking kind of what are situations in which you might be first pitching to someone who, you know, potentially could be interested, but your business is pre-sales. Like, how would you kind of approach that? And, you know, specifically kind of getting at when you come to those points of like validation and like bringing up metrics, like before, when you're still really on, like, how do you kind of approach that aspect of the pitch?
And you know, there's different stages of investment. There's seed money, there's, you know, venture capital money, there's shareholder, you know, so there's each stage has different allowances. Don't pitch something that you have not tested.
Yep.
Like that validation will outweigh lack of other information. So let's say you've got a better way of making a computer mouse. You've got to prototype it. You've got to test it. And it doesn't have to be a formal, you don't have to hire a company to do the testing. You can absolutely say, you know what, I took 20 classmates or a dozen colleagues, put them in a room with the product and a laptop, and we videotaped them using the mouse. And these are the results that we found.
Okay. Yeah.
We went back to the drawing table and made some corrections, and we created another prototype. So I'm a big fan of design thinking. I had a quote from somebody from IDEO in San Francisco. IDEO is an amazing design thinking agency. They are a think tank extraordinaire. You know, design thinking, it's a different workshop, but I'll give you the 5 basic steps of design thinking.
Sure.
There's empathize. So you're starting with empathy. You're starting with the human experience. How can I create something better for this person?
Right.
Then you define specifically what you're going to do. Then you start the ideation process. When you ideate, it's a series of brainstorming, heartstorming, right? There's different versions of that.
Yeah.
And you're not coming up with 3 or 4 versions. You're coming up with about 300 or 400 versions.
Right.
We don't brainstorm very well as a society because we do 4 or 5 ideas and we go, oh, fifth one, this is really good.
Mhm.
Push yourself harder, fill up a whiteboard, fill up pads, really come up with a lot of ideas, sleep on it, drink on it, come back to it,
Yeah.
and then start your prototype process, and then test it. And we do this in public relations and investor relations. We'll create a document and then we'll test it. And boy, it sure wasn't as clear as we thought it was. And
Right.
go back to the drawing board. That's where that comes from. And
Yeah.
now we go back to the ideate station and do some more brainstorming. Well, what if we pull these 2 thoughts in together? My sticky note budget is probably as large as my coffee budget in our agency. So we spend a lot of time on that. And then finally you get one that passes the testing and you move forward. So when you can demonstrate all of those things in a pitch because you don't have the financial things yet, it's really a cool process, and it's totally acceptable at that early stage. You won't want to go into a venture capital pitch with a slide deck without more financial answers, because
Sure.
again, just a reminder, what do they want? They want their money back and they want a massive profit. So, family money, friends and family round is, pre-seed. That's where, Ira's a good kid. We'll put a little money in his little side business. Okay, you don't have to prove much, but when you start moving through the life cycle of investment, you'll need to keep proving it. One other thing I want to mention,
Yeah.
I think that's for that topic, but again, going back to Shark Tank, think about how many times people show up with a sample.
Yeah.
Right? And so the reason that is, right, when you show, so they don't use pitch decks, right? They have a set, they create backgrounds and props. So now we've got visual, they're talking. So now we've got audible. So we've got ocular, we've got audible. What do the samples do? It's tactile. So now you've got 3 different neurological inputs that are telling the same thing. That's how the story resonates, right? So when we talk about how a story creates engagement, the more input that you can create, the better the story is going to go.
Right. I love that. And it makes me wonder how this would have been different if we were in person. You would have come in with a light bulb, pass it around. I love
We would have
it.
started with I would have turned the lights out.
Oh yeah,
We would have started in the black.
Yeah. But I love that. And it's just so many great things for entrepreneurs to think about, especially like when they're in those early stages, like thinking about partnerships and like some of those, there again, like you mentioned, other situations besides investors where they might find themselves pitching. So that's amazing. We do have a couple questions about kind of like the concept that you mentioned of like creating a hero in your story. So I kind of wanted to ask if you had maybe an example of a company today that you've seen like create a really meaningful attachment for potential buyers, like through their storytelling. Or maybe if you didn't have an example, if you just had like tips on best practices.
I'll tell you, I'll let everybody go find this one on their own because it's just
Sure.
to watch. Go Google Jeff Goldblum, right? You guys know the actor Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum. Oh my goodness, what is the name of the first Apple MP3 player? I'm drawing a blank.
I'm too young for this.
You are. Oh my God, I can't believe I just totally spaced
Oh,
on
the iPod?
iPod.
We got
iPod. Yeah,
awesome
it's not
people
the
chiming
iPhone.
in.
Go look at this. It's their tagline was 1,000 songs in your pocket. Now, Apple didn't invent the MP3 player, right?
Sure.
There was other companies out there that were selling, that were actually on the market before the iPod came out. But you go look at the Jeff Goldblum video. He doesn't have any lines in it. He listens to, it's a cool story. It's a 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that's where, so what's the hero there? Steve Jobs wasn't the hero. It's not Apple being the hero.
Sure.
It's you. You get to put 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that's, at the end of the day, when you look at Apple commercials, they don't talk, so there's one right now that's a total 70s throwback, because the iPhone now comes in yellow. And it's a story. There's a guy going through his community and spreading happiness, and it's got this total 70s vibe to it. And it's just a little miniature movie, but it's happy and it's upbeat, and it doesn't say, hey, the iPhone, has this much memory and it will do this and you can surf the internet. It doesn't tell any features. It just tells you how happy you're going to be.
Right.
And when you look at, BMW has had the same tagline for years, right? The ultimate driving machine. How do you improve on that?
Right.
You don't, like, there's a story right in their tagline. And when you watch one car commercial, it's going to be like, oh, and we got a moonroof, and you got this, and you got this. And I saw, I don't remember the brand, but it was a commercial, and the woman gets in the car and she starts it, and it's quiet and it's comfortable, and you can just see all the stress leave her body and how comfortable she looks, right? She's the hero. But what does that do? Remember that whole thing where that neuro-connector, right? You put yourself in that car and you see yourself being happy and relaxed. And it's a tiny little story. And there's a million commercials out there that have started doing this storytelling. Now, there's always going to be those laundry detergent commercials and the staples where they're just selling a product, right? They're not, but I think there's a laundry detergent called Gain, and the woman loves the smell of Gain, and it's like you've got your fairy godfather, and it's this kind of schlubby looking dude. He's not right, but it's like, but he's got the stuff that you want. And you see yourself going, oh, I love it when my clothes smell good. So anytime you can take the viewer and put them into it, that's making them the hero. And the investor is not the hero. It's the person that will use the product. So the investor, again, what do they want? They want to make money. That's them being the hero. But you have to demonstrate how the user of your product will be the hero of the story, because you're fulfilling, you're solving some challenge in their life. And that's what needs to come across.
I love that. So powerful. And I think there's going to be a lot of ideas that come from that, in the sense of like, okay, wow, there's all of these really great examples out there. How can I kind of look at these strategies and maybe see how I can make my story kind of effective and create that hero? I think we have time for one more question. So this one is kind of a subjective one in a way, but this person is asking, what is one word to you that captures what a great communicator is? And I would also just want to expand upon that potentially to ask kind of, about maybe some common qualities that you have noticed in your work among great communicators.
One word. Okay, if you've been here for the whole hour, you can see I don't ever just use limited words, but
Right.
I think probably
Okay.
engagement. That certainly is our agency. Everything we do is about engaging,
Mhm.
whether it's engaging with shareholders,
Mm.
or stakeholders or an audience. It's not talking to.
Mhm.
When sometimes we'll use the graphic of a megaphone because we want to
Yeah.
amplify our client's story.
Yeah.
But really, what I like better than a megaphone, because a megaphone is kind of one way, right?
Yeah.
I like the old tin cans with the string on it.
Oh yeah.
It's a two-way.
Yeah, I
It's a
love that.
two-way, and that's what engagement is all about. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of that? I totally spaced.
Just like some common qualities that you've noticed among great communicators that you've worked with in your business journey.
The ability to distill a big story into sound bites that you can process. We
Sure.
live in a different era. When I was in undergrad in the 80s at Cal State Long Beach, the rule of thumb was it took 7 impressions of a brand to create impact on you.
Mhm.
So that means you needed to just see a logo 7 times or hear it 7 times before you were like, okay, I know this company, I want to do that.
Right.
It's 5,000 now.
Wow.
7 is a blink. Uh,
Yeah.
Brands need to tell their story in
Mhm.
such a way that it hits your gut, your heart, your brain. If you can touch it, if you can smell it, if you can feel it, it's a fascinating time.
Mhm.
And I look at the different generations. If you're a consumer product good, right? So CPG is, anything that they carry on the store shelves at Target or Walmart.
Sure.
Um, you are advertising to Gen Z, which are sophomores in high school.
Right.
Okay, they process information completely different.
Yeah.
I have a client that we just engaged a TikTok creator to
Mhm.
do a couple TikTok videos for them. Certainly not talking to me. But they have an area of expertise and we're talking to a different demographic. So yeah, an expert communicator needs to immediately identify who they're talking to.
Mhm.
What is my audience? If I get up in front of a group of high school students and start talking about manual windows, 8-track tapes, and the Beatles, you're going to see a lot of kids sitting in the audience like this
Right.
because they're on their phones.
Yeah.
So I need to be able to identify that audience, understand what's important to them,
Mhm.
and then deliver a story that connects with them.
Yeah.
And that's really, a lot of people think, oh, distilling it is dumbing it down, and that's not it at all. Distilling a story is creating an opportunity for people to engage in something that's meaningful to them.
I love it. That's amazing. All right, we are just out of time, but if you had just one quick key takeaway that you wanted to leave with the audience, maybe like a piece of personal wisdom or something from this that you wanted to leave, what would that be?
So this was tough. I got 2, but I'll make them.
Sure.
One, tell a story. Be a storyteller, a business storyteller. Tell the story of your brand. Remember that slide I put up 22 times. Anytime you want to do a list of bullets, go, wow, 22. I could be 22 times more impactful than putting a bunch of bullets up.
Totally.
And the second thing is, for all the entrepreneurs, you're going to fall down, you're going to skin your knees, you're going to smack your forehead into a wall. Get up, pull yourself up, go out and be amazing. And it might not be the first idea, it might be the 37th idea, but you are going to create something fascinating that the world didn't know that we needed. And I hope I'm around to see it.
Amazing, Ira. Thank you so much for speaking to our community, sharing this amazingly creative and insightful pitch deck and all of your amazing advice. It was so incredible to talk to you on behalf of the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and everyone in attendance today. We sincerely thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. And to our audience, we would love for you to join us again for upcoming webinars. You can view them by using the link that's going to be posted in the chat. And thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you online with us soon.